What if Germany wasn't split into two countries, but into three? Everyone knows about East and West Germany, but almost nobody talks about the third country that almost existed, a Slavic state hidden inside the map. A nation with its own language, its own culture, and a people who are ready to declare independence. The only question is, why was this story erased? What if I told you that Germany was almost divided into three countries instead of two? It sounds like an internet theory, but it is in historical archives. Hidden among rushed decisions made at the end of World War II, in the middle of the chaos, a name appears that almost no one knows. Lusatia, a curious territory where an ancient people tried to prove they existed long before modern borders. There, among dense forests and villages that look frozen in time, lived an unexpected group. They were not typical Germans, nor refugees placed there by the war. They were Sorbian people, a community with their own culture. So unique that many Soviet officials believed they were looking at a new country inside Germany. To them, that piece of land seemed like their chance to finally gain recognition. For decades, the dream remained buried in military reports and secret political decisions. And the question echoes, how did an entire people inside Germany almost create their own state? Yet no one talks about it. The answer involves torn maps, promises that were never fulfilled, and a power game so delicate that it still gives chills to anyone who discovers it. And this is only the beginning. Imagine walking through a village in eastern Germany and suddenly seeing street signs written in two languages, German and something that sounds Slavic. There, among immaculate gardens and small churches, people still celebrate weddings with flower crowns and colorful clothes. This group is officially recognized as a Slavic minority, but they prefer to be called by their ancestral name, Lusatian. They speak their own language that sounds like nothing around them. It is not Czech, it is not Polish, it is not Russian, it is Sorbian, a language that carries ancient legends, songs, and an identity that survived empires and wars. Kana, their main cultural organization, works like an invisible embassy, protecting traditions that many people do not even know exist. The most surprising thing is the contrast. They live inside Germany, they pay German taxes, but they speak among themselves in a Slavic language that carries centuries of survival. When someone asks why they have never heard of them, the Lusatian Sorbs smile quietly. Maybe because for a long time, it was safer to remain invisible. Long before the idea of a divided Germany or any discussion about Germany partition, the Eastern Territory had a different identity. Slavic culture was so strong there that many city names were born from it. Leipzig comes from Lipski, place of the linden trees. Dresden comes from Dresgeni, people of the forest. Even Berlin is believed to have roots in ancient Slavic terms related to swamps and water. Nothing started out as German. There is a fascinating story told by ancient travelers. From a tower in Groningen in the north, it was possible to see villages where people spoke only Slavic languages. Imagine looking at the horizon and realizing that from that point on, another world began. Different customs, different clothes, different language. It was not only a different map, it was a parallel reality inside the heart of Europe. The curious part is that almost all Western Slavic territories were Germanized, absorbed, and forgotten, except one. While other cultures disappeared silently, this land resisted. A people decided that, no matter the pressure, they would not give up who they were. And this resistance would become crucial when the war ended and a new chance for change appeared. The war was over, the Reich collapsed, and the map of Europe became an open board. Soviet troops advanced through eastern Germany and found something unexpected. On small farms, colorful flags with unknown symbols and texts written in Cyrillic. They were not Soviets, they were not Poles, they were Sorbs claiming Lusatia as their own land. For some Soviet officers, it looked like the chance to create a Slavic state right in the middle of what was left of Germany. Among these officers was General Ivan Konev, who looked at this minority with interest. Documents show that he considered integrating the territory into Czechoslovakia, creating Slavic continuity between Czechoslovakia and Poland. For the first time in history, the Sorbs seemed close to becoming a real country, with culture, a flag, and even a provisional government being drafted. Soviet reports described this moment as a unique opportunity. If it went forward, Germany would not have been divided only between the Allies. It would have been a three-part Germany partition: West Germany, East Germany, and Lusatia. It was the perfect moment. At the Potsdam Conference, three men, Truman, Churchill, and Stalin, decided the future of millions with pen strokes, while they discussed borders, reparations, and the fate of defeated Germany. A discreet dossier circulated among Soviet advisors, the proposal to transform Lusatia into a new Slavic country. For some, it would be an elegant solution to protect a fragile culture and give voice to a Slavic minority that had resisted for centuries. The first option seemed logical: annex the territory to Czechoslovakia and fill the space left by the Germans expelled from the Sudetenland region. This would create a continuous cultural corridor of Slavic peoples with a solid identity and political alignment. Another possibility was to give the region to Poland, creating a zone of strategic security on the newly defined border. The boldest option, making Lusatia an independent state, excited idealists and terrified diplomats. A new Slavic country in the heart of Europe would create an alternate political scenario, something completely outside what the Allies expected. In the end, none of the three plans moved forward. While everyone looked at maps and talked about creating a new country, few noticed a delicate detail. Lusatia itself was not completely unified. There were two distinct regions, Upper Sorbia and Lower Sorbia, separated not only by distance, but also by pride and different ways of seeing the world. The differences were real accents, traditions, and even variations of the language. A resident from Upper Sorbia used to joke that he could recognize someone from Lower Sorbia just by the way they asked for bread at the bakery. They were all Sorbian people, but they were two versions of the same identity. In 1952, under the control of East Germany, the communist government tried to unify everything by force. They created an administrative plan to merge Upper and Lower Sorbia into a single cultural entity. The reaction was immediate. Protests erupted. When the region came under the socialist regime, many believed Sorbian culture would be erased. But something unexpected happened. The government allowed religious traditions to continue. Masses in Sorbian processions, folk festivals, everything flourished in the middle of communism. Of course, nothing came without a price. The Domowina organization gained influence, yet slowly began to suffer political infiltration. The logic was simple: preserve the culture, but control the message. Allow the Sorbian people to sing, dance, and celebrate, as long as they did not talk about autonomy or the creation of a new Slavic state. The result was ironic. The Sorbian people were promoted as a symbol of cultural diversity, while political decisions remained completely centralized in East Berlin. When the Berlin Wall fell and Germany partition finally ended, many Sorbs believed that moment was their second historical chance. If communism had limited them, democracy could open new possibilities. The region became part of unified Germany once again. Today, the Sorbian language is protected by law. Bilingual signs are still present. Schools teach the local culture and Domowina remains active, but the number of speakers decreases every year. Researchers point out that fewer than 60,000 people still use the language in daily life. While the former Czechoslovakia separated peacefully into two independent countries, the Sorbs remain united only by the memory of a state that never existed. Imagine a European map where, between Poland, Czechia, and Germany, a small country appears called Lusatia. A compact democracy, bilingual and culturally vibrant, something like Luxembourg with a Slavic heritage. If that country had emerged in 1945, it would have become the strategic neutral state, neither fully Soviet nor aligned with the West. While the world watched the conflict between East Germany and West Germany, Lusatia could have acted as a buffer. Culturally, it would have been a laboratory of identity preservation. The Sorbian language would be spoken in schools, in public squares, in shops, not just as survival, but as national pride. The Slavic past of Western Europe is filled with voices that vanished without leaving visible traces. Entire peoples, such as the Palabians and the Obatrites, spoke Slavic languages and lived where we now see modern German cities. The contrast is striking. While other minorities like the Bretons in France or the Welsh in the United Kingdom kept their languages, these peoples disappeared almost without resistance. Only the Sorbian people managed to keep their roots and language alive inside a modern nation. Lusatia is the final piece of a huge puzzle. If it had become an independent country, perhaps today there would be other Slavic microstates in the West. The story of Lusatia proves something simple. Cultures can survive even when countries do not exist. Maps change, identities endure. If an entire people almost created a country inside Germany and no one told this story, imagine how many other narratives the world is still hiding. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to continue discovering the hidden stories that shaped the destiny of Europe.